A young millionaire believed he was marrying an unattractive woman through an arranged marriage, but when she removed her veil, he was stunned by what he saw. The dining room of the sprawling estate radiated warmth from the soft golden glow of the crystal chandelier overhead. The long table, grand enough to seat 20, was elegantly set with fine china and silverware, though only 3 chairs were occupied. David sat at one end, his posture casual, but his expression marked by clear irritation. Across from him, his father sipped wine with a calm demeanor, while his mother observed him intently, her hands neatly folded on the table. "This isn't happening," David said, breaking the tense silence. He pushed his untouched plate aside, the steak now cold. "You can't be serious." "David," his father began, his tone even. "This isn't a request. It's a decision that's already been made." David leaned back in his chair, running a hand through his dark hair. "A decision made without me? How considerate." "Enough with the sarcasm," his mother interjected sharply. "This isn't just about you. It's about the family, about preserving what we've built." David's eyes narrowed. "And the way to preserve it is by marrying me off like it's the 18th century? To a woman I've never even met?" "You'll meet her soon enough," his father replied, setting his glass down. "Anna is a respectable young woman from a good family. This arrangement benefits everyone." David let out a bitter laugh. "A good family, huh? Is that why she hides behind a veil? What's she hiding? A scar? A secret identity?" "Don't be cruel," his mother snapped, her voice icy. "Anna is a private person, and she has her reasons. She doesn't owe you an explanation." "No," David shot back. "But apparently, I owe her a lifetime. Why me? Why not let her marry someone who actually wants to go along with this?" "Because you're the heir to this family," his father said firmly. "And the Whitmans are critical to our business. This marriage is as much a partnership as it is a union." David let out a dry laugh. "So, it's a transaction. Wonderful. Love clearly has no place here." "Don't be dramatic," his mother said, her voice softening slightly. "You're not being asked to love her, just to respect her and fulfill your duty." "My duty?" David's hands clenched into fists on the table. "To marry a stranger? To give up any chance of choosing my own future?" "You'll have everything you could ever need," his father said calmly, "and so will she." David abruptly stood, the chair scraping loudly against the floor. "I don't need this," he said, his voice low but seething with anger. "I don't need her." "You'll meet her tomorrow," his mother said, standing as well. Her tone left no room for argument. "At dinner, and I expect you to behave like the man we raised you to be." David stared at her, his jaw tight. He said nothing, but his silence was charged. Turning, he strode out of the dining room, the weight of their expectations bearing down on him like a suffocating shroud. Upstairs in his room, David poured himself a glass of whiskey and stared out the window at the twinkling city lights in the distance. The anger surging through him was relentless, sharp, and unyielding. An arranged marriage to a woman who wouldn't even show her face. It felt like an outdated, cruel joke. He downed the whiskey in one gulp, the burn doing little to dull the edge of his frustration. Tomorrow, he thought bitterly. Tomorrow, he would meet this Anna and see what kind of game his parents were playing. One thing was certain, he wasn't going to make this easy for anyone. The next evening, the Whitman estate buzzed with quiet preparation for the dinner. David arrived in his parents' formal sitting room, his expression carefully neutral, though frustration simmered beneath the surface. His father greeted him with a nod, while his mother offered a tight-lipped smile. "She'll be here shortly," she said, smoothing the folds of her dress. "Wonderful," David muttered under his breath as he adjusted the cuffs of his shirt. Moments later, the sharp sound of heels clicking against the polished floor drew everyone's attention. David looked up as a woman entered, escorted by an older man. He recognized the man escorting her as one of the Whitman patriarchs. The young woman moved with grace, her posture straight and composed. A long veil cascaded down from her head to her shoulders, concealing her face, leaving only her sharp, piercing gray eyes visible. The unusual color seemed almost unnerving, as though they could see right through him. "David," his mother said, stepping forward with a welcoming smile. "This is Anna." Anna inclined her head slightly in acknowledgement. Her voice was calm, measured, and steady. "It's a pleasure to meet you, David." David hesitated, his gaze fixed on her veil. Mechanically, he extended his hand, but his mind raced. "Likewise," he managed to say, though his tone betrayed a lack of conviction. They soon gathered around the dining table, the atmosphere formal and restrained. David struggled to focus on the polite conversation flowing between their parents, his attention constantly drawn back to Anna. Her stillness, her composed responses, and above all, the veil masking her face, fascinated and frustrated him. Halfway through dinner, David could no longer hold back his irritation. He set down his fork and turned to Anna, his voice low but edged with pointed curiosity. "You don't have to keep that on, you know. No one here is going to judge you." His mother shot him a sharp warning look, but Anna appeared entirely unaffected. Her calm, steady eyes flicked toward him. "I appreciate your concern," she said softly, "but I prefer to keep it on." David raised an eyebrow, his frustration bubbling to the surface. "Why? Are you hiding something?" "David!" his mother hissed, her tone sharp with disapproval. "It's fine," Anna said, her voice never wavering. She turned her gaze back to David, unflinching. "I'm not hiding anything that matters. What's under the veil isn't relevant to our arrangement." David leaned back in his chair, crossing his arms over his chest. "Arrangement. That's an interesting word for marriage." Anna tilted her head slightly, unfazed. "Isn't that what this is? An arrangement. Your parents need an alliance, and my family needs the same. There's no need to complicate it with unnecessary emotions or expectations." Her words hit David like a slap. He blinked, momentarily stunned. "So that's how you see it," he said, his voice laced with sarcasm. "No love, no compassion, just a business deal." Anna's gaze remained steady. "Do you believe otherwise?" David opened his mouth to respond, but found no words. A wave of frustration and confusion surged within him. She was so calm, so composed, as if the entire situation didn't faze her at all. "I want to know who I'm marrying," he said finally, his voice quieter but firm. "Not just your name or your family. I want to know you." Anna regarded him thoughtfully before speaking. "You will, in time. But for now, all you need to know is that I understand my role in this union. I hope you'll understand yours." Her words struck a nerve. David felt a flush of anger rise to his cheeks, but before he could retort, Anna's father cleared his throat, breaking the tension. "Perhaps we should move on to dessert," he suggested, lightly, though his tone was firm. The rest of the evening passed in an awkward formality. David's parents tried to smooth over the tension, while Anna remained poised and enigmatic, her expression unreadable. When the evening finally came to an end, David walked Anna and her father to the door. As she turned to leave, he couldn't resist asking the question that had been gnawing at him. "Why do you act like this doesn't matter?" he asked, his voice low but charged. Anna paused, her hand resting on the doorframe. She turned slightly, her sharp gray eyes meeting his. "It matters," she said simply, "but not in the way you think." With that, she stepped out into the night, leaving David standing there. Frustration churned within him, mingled with a flicker of curiosity he couldn't quite ignore. The day of the wedding arrived with all the grandeur and opulence one would expect from the union of two wealthy families. The sprawling venue was decorated with fresh flowers and sparkling chandeliers. Guests, dressed in designer suits and gowns, milled about, exchanging polite greetings and speculation about the mysterious bride. David stood at the end of the aisle, his posture stiff, his frustration barely concealed behind a composed expression. The ceremony, though extravagant, felt empty to him, like a carefully staged performance he had no desire to participate in. When Anna entered the room, draped in an elaborate white gown with a veil that entirely concealed her, the crowd fell silent. She moved with a quiet elegance, her steps deliberate and poised, but her veil remained firmly in place, hiding her face. David's jaw tightened as she approached. He could feel the weight of every pair of eyes in the room, their hushed murmurs barely masked by polite smiles. "She still won't take it off," someone whispered behind him. "Maybe there's a reason," another voice replied. The ceremony unfolded with stiff formality. Vows were exchanged, rings were slipped onto fingers, and the officiant finally declared them husband and wife. Then came the words David had dreaded most. "You may kiss the bride," the officiant said, warmly. David hesitated, glancing at Anna. She inclined her head slightly, but made no move to lift her veil. With a resigned sigh, he leaned forward and placed a brief, hollow kiss against the fabric covering her cheek. The gesture was distant and cold, and the polite applause that followed felt equally strained. David could sense the judgment in the room, unspoken but palpable. The reception that followed was as lavish as one would expect, hosted in a grand ballroom with champagne, music, and laughter filling the air. But despite the grandeur, the tension between David and Anna remained thick. They sat at the head table, side by side, yet they couldn't have felt farther apart. David sipped his drink in silence, scanning the room as snippets of gossip reached his ears. Why won't she show her face? Maybe she's hiding something? Can you imagine marrying someone like that, just for a business deal? David clenched his jaw, the anger and humiliation simmering just beneath the surface. He glanced at Anna, who remained composed and poised, her posture impeccable. She seemed entirely unfazed by the whispers, her veil still firmly in place. When the evening finally drew to a close, David and Anna were escorted to a private suite prepared for them. The tension followed them inside, as thick as the silence that hung in the air when the door closed behind them. David shrugged off his jacket, tossing it onto a nearby chair, and turned to Anna. His frustration finally boiled over. "Are you going to keep that thing on forever?" he demanded, gesturing toward her veil. Anna removed her gloves with calm precision, setting them neatly on the dresser. "Until I'm ready," she replied evenly. David let out a sharp, bitter laugh. "Ready for what? To reveal whatever it is you're hiding? Or are you just enjoying this game?" Anna turned to face him, her gaze steady even through the fabric of the veil. "This isn't a game, David, and I'm not hiding anything that matters." "Not to you, maybe," he shot back. "But I'm the one standing there while people whisper about my wife like she's some kind of mystery. Do you have any idea what that's like?" Anna's gaze didn't waver. "If their opinions matter more to you than I do, then perhaps you should reconsider what this marriage is about." Her words struck a nerve, and David felt his anger falter. He ran a hand through his hair, exhaling sharply. "I just want to know the truth, Anna. Why won't you let me see you?" "When the time is right," she said simply. "And who decides that?" "I do," she replied, her tone unyielding. David stared at her, his frustration and confusion twisting into a knot he couldn't untangle. Finally, he turned away and poured himself a glass of whiskey from the suite's bar. "Fine," he said curtly. "Keep your secrets. But don't expect me to wait forever." Anna didn't respond. She sat down at the vanity and began removing her earrings with practiced care, her silence heavier than any words could have been. David downed his drink in one gulp, the burn doing little to ease the ache in his chest. This was not the life he had imagined, and yet he couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to Anna than she let on. As the night wore on, they retreated to opposite sides of the suite, the distance between them feeling as vast as ever. Yet, in the quiet moments before sleep, David found himself wondering, not for the first time, what lay beneath the veil. The days that followed their awkward wedding were a blur of strained silences and polite distance. David avoided Anna as much as possible, spending long hours in his office or taking extended drives to escape the confines of the mansion. Yet, despite his frustration, he couldn't help but notice small things about her. The way she moved through the house with an effortless grace, the air of quiet authority she carried wherever she went. One day, during one of these moments of observation, David stumbled upon an unexpected scene. Late in the morning, he was seated in the sunlit study, sifting through documents for a merger proposal that had reached a frustrating impasse. The numbers didn't add up, and the deal seemed on the verge of collapse. His irritation grew as he reviewed the paperwork for the umpteenth time. "Need some help?" David looked up, startled. Anna stood in the doorway, wearing a simple dress that flowed gracefully over her frame. As always, her veil concealed her face. "I didn't realize you were there," he said, his tone clipped. "This isn't exactly your area of expertise." Anna tilted her head slightly, her voice calm. "You might be surprised." Before he could object, she stepped into the room with a quiet confidence. She picked up one of the documents, her gloved fingers gliding over the text. After a moment, she spoke. "The issue isn't the numbers," she said. "It's this clause. The phrasing leaves too much ambiguity, which is likely making the other party hesitant." David frowned, leaning over to see where she was pointing. "You think that's the problem?" "I don't think," she replied simply. "I know. Tighten the language, specify the terms, and they'll sign." David stared at her, surprised. "How do you even know that?" Anna set the paper down, her posture relaxed. "I may not be part of your world, but that doesn't mean I don't understand how it works." With that, she turned and walked out, leaving David to stare after her, the weight of her words sinking in. A few days later, David encountered Anna again in an unexpected setting. He was walking through the garden on his way to the garage when he heard laughter coming from the kitchen. Curious, he stopped at the open doorway and peered inside. Anna was standing near the counter, her veil still in place, chatting with the kitchen staff. Her voice was warm and engaging, and the staff seemed genuinely delighted by her presence. "You've outdone yourself with the pastries today, Mrs. Hale," Anna said sincerely. "They look almost too good to eat." The head cook, Mrs. Hale, beamed with pride. "Oh, you flatter me, Mrs. Whitman, but it's true, isn't it? I've been perfecting that recipe for weeks." Anna laughed softly, clasping her hands in front of her. "Well, if you ever need a taste tester, you know where to find me." David watched from the doorway as the staff responded to Anna with affection and respect, their demeanor relaxed and open. Despite the veil that masked her face, she had a way of making people feel valued and seen. A trait David hadn't expected. As he turned to leave, he couldn't shake the image of Anna standing there, her warmth and poise starkly contrasting the distant and enigmatic figure he had imagined her to be. Over the following weeks, David found himself paying closer attention to Anna. Though he wouldn't admit it aloud, he noticed the way she carried herself with quiet dignity, the subtle ways she contributed to the household, and the sharp intelligence that surfaced in their rare conversations. One evening during dinner, Anna surprised him by asking about his work. "How is the merger coming along?" she asked, her voice calm but curious. David hesitated, unsure whether to dismiss her or engage. Finally, he sighed and set down his fork. "It's complicated. The other party is still hesitant, even after the changes we made." Anna nodded thoughtfully. "Perhaps they need more reassurance. Have you considered hosting a meeting here? Sometimes seeing the people behind the business can make all the difference." David blinked, caught off guard by her suggestion. "You think that would work?" "It's worth a try," Anna said simply. To his surprise, David found himself considering her idea. David followed Anna's advice, and the meeting turned out to be a success. The deal closed shortly afterward, leaving David relieved yet bewildered. As the days turned into weeks, he found himself reevaluating everything he thought he knew about Anna. She wasn't the distant, impersonal figure he had initially imagined. Beneath the veil was a woman of intelligence, kindness, and quiet strength, a depth he hadn't expected. Yet despite all he had observed, the veil remained, a constant reminder of the distance that still lingered between them. One night, as David sat alone in his study, he found himself staring out the window, his thoughts consumed by Anna. She was nothing like he had anticipated, and yet he couldn't shake the feeling that there was still so much he didn't know. For the first time, he began to wonder if the real issue wasn't Anna's reluctance to reveal herself, but his own inability to truly see her. The tension between them had been building for weeks, an unspoken weight hanging heavy in the air. Despite the moments of mutual respect and surprising insights, the veil served as a persistent reminder of the barrier between them. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and cast long shadows across the mansion, David felt he could no longer hold back. He sought Anna out in the library, where she often retreated with a book in hand. She was seated in her usual chair by the window, the soft glow of a nearby lamp illuminating the veil that still concealed her face. "Anna," David began, his tone sharper than he intended. She looked up, her gray eyes calm but watchful. "Yes?" "We need to talk," he said, stepping closer. Anna closed her book and set it aside. "What about?" David hesitated, his frustration bubbling to the surface. "Why do you keep hiding behind that veil? Do you think I can't handle seeing you? That I'm too shallow to accept whatever it is you're so afraid to show?" Anna's gaze didn't falter, though David noticed a slight flicker of emotion in her eyes. "This isn't about you, David," she said quietly. "Then what is it about?" he demanded, his voice rising. "Because from where I'm standing, it feels like some kind of test. Like you're trying to see how long I'll tolerate being married to a mystery." Anna stood, her movements controlled yet deliberate. She turned away from him, her hands clasped tightly in front of her. "It's not a test," she said softly. "Then why?" David pressed, stepping closer. "Why won't you let me see you? Do you think I'm not mature enough to handle the truth? Or is it that you don't trust me?" Anna's shoulders tensed, and for a moment, David thought she might leave the room without answering. But when she finally turned to face him, her eyes held a quiet intensity that made him pause. "Do you really want to know why, David?" she asked, her voice steady but laced with an edge he hadn't heard before. "Yes," he said firmly. "Because I wanted you to see me for who I am," she said, her tone unwavering. "Not for what I look like, or what others say about me, but for the person I am beneath all of that. I hoped, that you might be willing to look beyond the surface." Her words struck him like a blow, the weight of them sinking deep into his chest. Anna continued, her voice quieter now, but no less impactful. "But it seems I was wrong. All this time, you've been fixated on what you can't see, instead of what's right in front of you." David opened his mouth to respond, but no words came. For the first time, he realized how shallow and judgmental he had been. He had spent so much energy resenting the veil, convincing himself that it was a barrier between them, that he had failed to see the depth of the person wearing it. "I'm sorry," he said finally, his voice barely above a whisper. Anna's expression softened, though her eyes still held a trace of sadness. "I'm not asking for an apology, David. I'm asking for patience and understanding." Her words lingered in the air, and David felt their weight as he nodded slowly. For the first time, he understood that his journey with Anna wasn't about uncovering her face. It was about learning to truly see her. David nodded, his throat tight. "I've been a fool," he admitted. "I judged you for something I didn't understand, and I made this about me when it was never about me to begin with." Anna's lips curved into the faintest hint of a smile. "We all have our blind spots," she said softly. "The question is whether we're willing to see past them." For the first time, David felt a glimmer of hope, a sense that, perhaps, they could move forward together. "I want to try," he said earnestly, "to really see you, not just what's under the veil, but everything you are." Anna regarded him for a long moment, her gray eyes searching his. Then she nodded, her voice soft but resolute. "Then we'll start there." As she turned back to her chair and picked up her book, David felt an unexpected calm settle over him. The road ahead was still uncertain, but for the first time, he was ready to face it. Not as a man fixated on appearances, but as someone willing to understand the woman he had married. And though the veil remained, David realized it no longer defined her. It was simply one part of a much larger story, a story he was finally ready to learn. In the following weeks, David made a conscious effort to change. Conversations with Anna lingered in his mind, and he began to understand that if he wanted their marriage to work, he needed to approach her with patience and genuine curiosity. One morning, over breakfast, he decided to take the first step. "Anna," he began, setting his coffee cup down, "I've been thinking about what you said, about seeing who you are." Anna looked up from her plate, her gray eyes meeting his through the veil. "And I'd like you to be more involved in the business," he continued, his tone earnest. "You have a sharp mind, and I could use your perspective on a few projects. If you're interested, that is." Anna regarded him quietly, as if searching for any trace of insincerity. Finally, she nodded. "I'd be happy to help." David felt a small sense of relief, though he tried not to let it show. "Great. There's a meeting this afternoon about the Whitman merger. I think your insights could be valuable." That afternoon, Anna joined David in the conference room for the first time. The executives were clearly surprised to see her, their curiosity palpable, though none dared comment on her veil. As the discussion unfolded, Anna listened intently, her hands folded neatly in her lap. When David turned to her for input, she spoke with clarity and confidence. "The issue isn't just about profit margins," she said, her voice calm yet authoritative. "It's about sustainability. If you want this partnership to last, you need to show the Whitmans that you're invested in their long-term success, not just your own." The room fell silent as her words sank in. David watched as the executives nodded in agreement, clearly impressed. Later, as they walked back to his office, David turned to Anna. "You were incredible in there," he said, a hint of pride in his voice. Anna tilted her head slightly. "I was just honest." "Sometimes that's exactly what people need," David replied. Over time, David found himself seeking Anna's advice more and more. She had an uncanny ability to cut through the noise and identify the core of any problem, whether it was a business matter or something more personal. One evening, as they reviewed a proposal together in the study, David paused to watch her. She was focused, her gloved fingers skimming the pages as she jotted down notes. "You're good at this," he said, breaking the silence. Anna glanced up, her eyes softening. "I've had good teachers." David smiled, realizing that her humility was yet another layer to the woman he was beginning to understand. Their growing partnership extended beyond business, and for the first time, David felt like they were building something meaningful together. David began to notice the small but thoughtful ways Anna expressed her kindness, how she interacted warmly with the household staff and left small gestures of care for him, like a cup of tea on his desk during late-night work sessions, or a book suggestion she thought he might enjoy. In response, David made an effort to show his appreciation in meaningful ways. He started asking about her day, involving her in decisions, and demonstrating that her presence mattered. One evening, as they sat together in the garden, David turned to Anna with a question that had been on his mind. "I've been meaning to ask," he began hesitantly. "Why did you agree to marry me? You didn't have to." Anna remained quiet for a moment, her gaze fixed on the flowers, swaying gently in the evening breeze. "Because I saw potential in you," she said at last. "I saw someone who could become more than they realized." David felt a lump rise in his throat. "And have I lived up to that?" he asked softly. Anna met his eyes, a faint warmth in her expression. "You're getting there?" she replied. Despite their progress, the veil remained, a quiet yet persistent symbol of the emotional distance that still lingered between them. One night, as they sat by the fireplace, David decided to broach the subject once more. "Anna," he began carefully, "I don't want to push you, but do you think you'll ever take the veil off?" Anna's gaze didn't waver, her voice steady. "When the time is right." David nodded, though he couldn't help the flicker of disappointment in his chest. "I understand," he said. "I just want you to know that I'm here whenever you're ready." For the first time, Anna reached out and placed her hand over his. "Thank you," she said softly. In that moment, David realized the veil was no longer the barrier he had once imagined it to be. It was simply a part of her story, a story she would share when the time was right. And until that day, he would wait, knowing their growing bond was worth the patience it required. The grand ballroom of the Whitman estate was alive with music, laughter, and the clinking of glasses. Chandeliers cast a warm glow over the crowd of elegantly dressed guests, and the air buzzed with excitement. David had spared no expense in organizing the gala, a celebration of the Whitman merger's success and the promising future of his expanding empire. Standing near the stage, David engaged in polite conversation with a group of investors, though his thoughts were elsewhere. His eyes kept drifting toward the grand staircase, wondering when, or if, Anna would make her entrance. She had been unusually quiet about her plans for the evening, and her absence was beginning to draw murmurs among the guests. "Your wife isn't joining us tonight?" one investor asked, his tone polite but curious. "She'll be here," David replied, though even he wasn't entirely sure. Just then, the soft hum of conversation began to fade. All eyes turned toward the staircase, and David followed their gazes. His breath caught as Anna appeared at the top of the steps. She wore an elegant emerald gown that shimmered in the light, perfectly tailored to her slender frame. But it wasn't the gown that drew the collective gasp from the crowd. It was the fact that for the first time, her face was uncovered. Anna descended the staircase with the poise of someone who had commanded attention her entire life. Her striking features, high cheekbones, luminous skin, and those captivating gray eyes, held an almost ethereal beauty that left the room in stunned silence. David stood frozen, his heart pounding as she approached. The murmurs in the crowd rippled around him. "She's stunning. Why would she hide a face like that?" Anna reached the bottom of the staircase and paused, her eyes scanning the room before finally landing on David. She gave him a faint, knowing smile and began walking toward him, the crowd parting like the sea to let her through. When she reached him, David managed to find his voice, though it came out softer than he intended. "Anna, why now?" Anna looked at him, her expression calm yet resolute. "Because it was time," she said simply. She turned to face the room, her voice carrying effortlessly over the hushed silence. "I know many of you have wondered why I've kept my face hidden," she began. Anna began to speak, her tone steady yet laced with quiet emotion. "Some of you may have assumed the worst, that I was hiding a scar, a deformity, or something shameful, but the truth is far simpler." She paused, her gaze sweeping across the room. "I wore the veil because I wanted to be seen for who I am. Not for what I look like, but for my thoughts, my values, and my actions. Too often, we judge others based on appearances, and I didn't want that to define me or my marriage." Her words hung in the air, captivating the crowd with their honesty. She turned back to David, her voice softening as she said, "I kept the veil because I needed to know if you could see beyond it. If you could truly see me." David's chest tightened as her words struck a chord deep within him, cutting through every layer of doubt and frustration he'd ever felt. He stepped closer to her, his voice low but filled with emotion. "I see you, Anna. I think I always have. I just didn't realize it until now." The room seemed to fade away as David spoke, his focus entirely on her. "I was so fixated on what I couldn't see that I forgot to look at what was right in front of me. Your kindness, your intelligence, your strength, that's what I've fallen in love with." Anna's eyes glistened with unshed tears, but her smile was unwavering. "And I've fallen in love with the man who is willing to grow, to learn, and to see beyond his own assumptions." David reached out, taking her hands gently in his. "Anna, I don't care what anyone else thinks. I care about you, and I'm grateful every day that you're my wife." The crowd erupted into applause, a few cheers breaking through as the guests celebrated the moment. Anna and David stood together, their connection undeniable as they shared a smile that conveyed more than words ever could. For the rest of the evening, Anna moved through the room with a newfound confidence, engaging with guests and charming everyone she spoke to. David stayed close by her side, introducing her to those she hadn't yet met, and watching with pride as she captivated the room. By the end of the night, it was clear to everyone in attendance that Anna wasn't just the beautiful woman who had revealed herself. She was a force to be reckoned with, a partner worthy of admiration and respect. Later, as the last of the guests departed and the ballroom grew quiet, David and Anna found themselves alone on the balcony overlooking the estate. The cool night air surrounded them, and the stars shimmered brightly above. David turned to Anna, his voice filled with sincerity. "I'm sorry it took me so long to understand. You deserved better from me." Anna smiled, leaning into his side. "We all grow at our own pace, David. What matters is that we're here now." He wrapped an arm around her, pulling her close. "I don't care what happens from here on out, as long as we face it together." Anna tilted her head to look at him, her gray eyes sparkling. "Together," she agreed. As they stood there, gazing out at the horizon, David realized that the journey they had taken, filled with misunderstandings, challenges, and revelations, had led them to this moment. And for the first time, he felt certain that their future was as bright and boundless as the stars above. In the weeks following the gala, David and Anna settled into a new rhythm, their relationship transforming in ways neither had anticipated. The veil was gone, but its absence marked only the beginning of the profound shift that had taken place between them. David no longer saw Anna as a mystery to unravel or a duty to fulfill. He saw her as his partner, someone who challenged him, supported him, and made him better. Anna, in turn, began to open up fully, sharing not just her sharp mind, but also her warmth, humor, and the vulnerability she had once kept hidden. Their mornings often began with coffee in the sunlit breakfast nook, discussing everything from their daily plans to their long-term dreams. Together, they built a life that was no longer defined by the walls they had once kept between them, but by the trust, respect, and love they had grown to share. David began to treasure the moments he shared with Anna, not just for her practical insights, but for the quiet intimacy that grew between them. At work, Anna's influence became undeniable. David increasingly sought her input in key decisions, and her thoughtful perspective earned her the respect of his team. She wasn't content to remain on the sidelines. Instead, she actively participated, offering solutions that balanced innovation with practicality. One afternoon, during a pivotal meeting about a new project, David introduced Anna to the boardroom. "Before we dive into the agenda," he began, "I'd like to formally introduce someone who has been an incredible asset, not just in my life, but to this company. My wife, Anna." The room erupted into polite applause as Anna stood, poised but modest. "She has a knack for seeing things others might overlook," David continued, his pride evident. "Her insights have already made a significant impact, and I'm excited for all of you to work with her." Anna offered a gracious smile. "Thank you, David. I'm honored to contribute, and I look forward to collaborating with all of you." As the meeting progressed, it became clear Anna wasn't there as a figurehead. She engaged with confidence and clarity, sparking lively discussions and earning nods of approval from even the most skeptical board members. Outside of work, David and Anna began to explore their shared interests. They visited art galleries, attended charity events, and traveled to places that inspired them. Through these experiences, they discovered a deep compatibility that extended beyond their initial arrangement. One evening, as they strolled hand in hand through a bustling street market during a trip abroad, David turned to Anna with a soft smile. "Do you ever think about how far we've come?" he asked. Anna chuckled. "Every day, especially when I remember how much you hated me wearing the veil." David laughed, his expression sheepish. "Guilty, but I'm grateful for it now. It taught me to see you." Not just your face, but everything that makes you, you. Anna squeezed his hand, her voice warm. And I'm grateful you were willing to learn. Months turned into years, and their bond only grew stronger. Together, they built a life that blended their strengths and values, creating not just a successful partnership in business, but a loving and supportive marriage. David often marveled at how much Anna had taught him, not just about the world, but about himself. She showed him the importance of patience, humility, and looking beyond surface impressions. Anna, in turn, admired David's willingness to grow and adapt, his ability to admit when he was wrong, and his unwavering commitment to their shared future. The story reached a fitting conclusion in the Whitman Enterprises boardroom, where David and Anna sat side by side at the head of the table. It was a pivotal meeting, one that would shape the company's next major initiative. As David opened the meeting, he paused, glancing at Anna with a smile. Before we begin, I want to acknowledge my wife, Anna. Her vision has been instrumental in shaping this project, and I couldn't ask for a better partner, both in business and in life. Anna met his gaze, her own smile soft but confident. Thank you, David, and I couldn't ask for a better teammate. The room filled with quiet murmurs of approval as the meeting commenced. Later, as they walked out of the building together, the city skyline glowing in the distance, David turned to Anna. I never imagined this is where we'd end up, he admitted. Anna tilted her head, her eyes sparkling with humor. Neither did I, but I think we did pretty well, don't you? David laughed, pulling her close. Better than I could have ever hoped. As they stood there, their future stretched out before them, David realized that the life they had built together wasn't just the result of circumstance. It was a testament to the power of understanding, respect, and love. A love that had grown not from first impressions, but from the truths they had uncovered about each other along the way. In that moment, he knew they were exactly where they were meant to be, together. David and Anna's journey reminds us that love isn't just about appearances. It's about seeing, understanding, and valuing the person beyond the surface. What began as an arranged marriage transformed into a beautiful partnership, built on trust, respect, and the courage to grow together. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like and share it with someone who could use a little inspiration today. And for more incredible tales of love, resilience, and transformation, be sure to subscribe to Touching Time Story. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time with another story sure to warm your heart.